It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
All right. Welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. I'm the president of Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. And you can find a link at emailrevealer.com. You can go there and get a copy of my book, an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. This show is brought to you by GetTheTea.com, LifeChangeTea.com. You go to GetTheTea.com and check out this Life Change tea. Now, I've only been drinking this now. People have been keeping track of this. I started drinking this tea, and I have about one glass a day in the morning. And I started this about 2 weeks ago, and I just checked the scale. I'm down to 200 pounds. I was 211, 212 when I started. So I've lost about 10 pounds since I started drinking this Life Change tea. And it's definitely it is a life-changing tea. I tell you that for a fact. And you crave it in the morning when you first get up. It gives you energy. It helps you with your digestion and stuff like that. I used to take a lot of those Tums and stomach medicine, Alka-Seltz and stuff like that, and apple cider vinegar, but I'm just drinking this tea. And I still, out of habit, I go down, I pick up a cup of coffee in the morning, just out of habit, but I don't even drink the whole thing anymore, so I'm going to probably cut that out. I'm just so used to driving by there and picking it up every day. Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Today we're going to have St. John Hunt. Is St. John Hunt online? Not yet.
Get him now.
He's here now? Okay. We're going to have St. John Hunt on the show today, who is the son of the Watergate burglar, E. Howard Hunt. Fascinating guy. He even has a tape of his dad, E. Howard Hunt, confessing to being involved in the JFK assassination. So,
he's here.
Okay, great. St. John Hunt. Mr. Hunt, are you there?
I'm here. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Why don't you remind the audience, who is St. John Hunt?
Such short notice. So pleased to be with you again.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Your audio sounds kind of crappy, though. What?
It does?
Yeah, it does. It's really bad. Hey, maybe Danny, maybe we can make another call and try and get a better line. Is Danny there? How about this, John? Can you see the number on your caller ID? Could you just hang up and try and call it back? Like I was saying, St. John Hunt is the son of E. Howard Hunt, the Watergate burglar, and his mother also too died in a mysterious plane crash right around the time of the Watergate. I think it was she was getting a payoff or something like that. And a very mysterious plane crash. He's written 2 books about all this. And you can find it on his website as well.
Okay, back.
Okay, great. Okay, St. John, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Yeah, that sounds a lot better. So, yeah, so you've written a couple of books. Tell the audience about yourself.
Well, I'm the eldest son of a near legendary man of many years of covert operations in the CIA, and then later on in his infamous role as one of the part of the special investigations team known as the Plumbers, working for Richard Nixon, at which he spent 3.5 years in prison for the crimes he committed, which was a big surprise to him, because he said, like Nixon said in his interview, if the president does it, it is not a crime.
Right.
So being raised in a CIA family, I didn't find out my father worked in the CIA until I was 16. And it wasn't until fairly recently, in the last 5 years or so, that I found out my mother was a CIA contract agent. She originally worked in the OSS in the late 40s, tracking Nazi jewels and gold and cash around across Europe, and so she enjoyed her work. She worked under Alan Dulles, who was then station chief in Bern, Switzerland, and that was the center of all things covert and spookified, if I could say, throughout Europe. And she kept with it. She was quite a classy gal, and she married my father, who had been in OSS as well. He fought over in Asia for his OSS detachment. And then when the CIA was formed, he jumped right in. So he was on the ground level of CIA and became known as a man of action, as a man who could get things done. He wasn't that Yale Ivy League type, but people appreciated his skills. He was also a writer. He had 88 books published by the time of his death, when he was 88, coincidentally enough. And so I grew up in this family of spies. And, 16, they told me, and it didn't really mean much to me because I didn't know what the CIA was from the FBI or from anything else. But, in the next few years, he retired supposedly from CIA and then got a job with President Nixon, working as one of the plumbers to plug the leaks of the famous Pentagon Papers, which had been leaked to the New York Times by Daniel Ellsberg. So, and in more recent times, the last 10, 15 years, I've realized that any child growing up in a CIA family is going to be faced at some point in their lives with the fact and realization that everything they thought they knew about themselves, their family, their travels, their mission in life is a lie. Mm-hmm. And I think this has a devastating effect on many young adults when they finally come to terms with this. And that's what I've had to deal with most recently. Just the fact that I feel more like a piece of luggage being toted around than I do as part of a tight-knit family, that loving and doing things together. So it's been a strange ride.
That's interesting because you've been on the show a couple of times. We spent like 4 hours together. You never mentioned that you felt that way before. This is something new?
Well, I think what it is I'm able to put it in the right phraseology. I don't have anger issues behind it, but it's something that I want to investigate further in terms of showing the collateral damage that that parents or a parent has in the covert world, and what it does, what it potentially can do to the children of that parent or parent. So I think the more I delve into the whole thing, I keep seeing new little things that, well, that's why I feel this way. That's why I can't talk to my son or whatever, which is not true, but I'm quite the opposite of my father. We had some good times bonding over music mostly, and he was just a very, very incredible guy, and my mother too.
Right, and you've written a couple of books. One about your mother, Dorothy, An Immoral, Dangerous Woman, The Murder of E. Howard Hunt's Wife, Watergate's Darkest Secret. We had you on about that. And the other one is Bond of Secrecy, My Life with CIA Spy and Watergate Conspirator E. Howard Hunt. And I noticed that you just did one recently since you've been on the last show, The Bush Crime Family. The inside story.
Yes, I wrote that with Roger Stone, who was my co-author in a new about-to-be-published book of our combined writings that we've done together. And that should be a fun book to read. But, Roger and I, he's a very complicated man, as my father was, too. But it turns out he had met my father once very briefly back in the day, and he was also fairly good friends with William F. Buckley Jr., the well-known right-wing conservative publisher of National Review and of that debate show, Firing Line, that he had on PBS for many, many years. He was my godfather. So Roger and I came to become pretty good friends.
Yeah, now William F. Buckley, he actually took custody of you. He raised you for a while, am I right?
No, he didn't. He came down to our house and had some goons basically kidnap my younger brother David, who was 9 at the time, and take him down to live with his godfather, who was a very well-known and respected Cuban leader of the Brigade 2506, which was the brigade that landed at Bay of Pigs in that failed attempt to overthrow the Castro government. And so that was William F. Buckley. He was my godfather and my sister's godfather, but he was a busy man, so he never raped us or anything. He just did things like kidnapping my brother.
Right. What a life, man.
Great stuff.
And William F. Buckley, people know him from firing lines from the TV show on Sunday mornings, the news debate show he used to do with Gore Vidal would come on there, and Norman Mailer would come on there and debate with him. But little known fact about William F. Buckley is he was CIA as well, right?
That is a fact. I think it's a little more well known now than probably 5 or 6 years ago. But my father met Buckley when Buckley was very young and recruited him into the CIA. At which time my father was station chief in the brand new Mexico City CIA station, and that's where he brought Uncle Bill, we called him, to be recruited in the CIA. And I think, it's like the mafia. Once you're in the CIA or in the mafia, you don't ever really retire. So, I mean, Buckley's always claimed that he was in the CIA officially for a few years, and then he wanted to move on to other pursuits. But, it's not that clean cut.
Gotcha. Now, you were saying a minute ago that you have a new book coming out, co-authored with Roger Stone. What's going to be the topic of that book?
The topic of that book is that Roger and I have been writing op-ed pieces for a year and a half, both for his blog site, Stone Cold Truth, as well as, many other outlets. I don't really know all of them, but it's really an inside view of the machinations of the Mueller investigation, his relationship with Roger's relationship with Donald Trump, with the Clintons, and all these things it's a fighting war of words, because as the mainstream media has pulled back so far from any truthful representation of the news or world events, people like Roger Stone and now myself have done what we can to write things and put the word out of it's not like that. It's more like this, And so this is a compilation of a little over a year's worth of writing, and it's quite it's quite robust, and it covers a lot of different things. All the current things that Roger's been involved in with the WikiLeaks hacking and the Russian collusion and all this stuff. It's all in there.
When can we expect this? That's going to be a bestseller.
Well, I don't know. I hope it'll do some pretty good sales. This is our first attempt at an Amazon self-publishing book, and it's called Away with Words, which it's a little double entendre in there. But we're still working on the cover. We've got all the printing materials already logged in and everything, and we're just kind of putting finishing touches on it. And he's got to do some kind of maneuvering with his other publishing, his Skyhorse publishers, and get out, maneuver himself so he can get this out too. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I can see it. It's up on Amazon right now. Away with Words. Away is in far away with words. Yeah,
you can take it either way. There's a Kindle edition that's out, and we have no promotion. I don't even think it's sold one Kindle copy. I just got it in there, and then I thought, well, doing the paperback copy is going to be a breeze, but it's not a breeze. It's a whole different ballgame. But we're getting there. It shouldn't take more than another 2 weeks or so to get everything finalized, and then we'll do a little press campaign, put the word out.
Gotcha. I got another scoop. I got another Opperman Report scoop here. Great. This is good to hear.
That's right. In fact, that's the first time it's been announced anywhere.
I'll put out a press release because this is big news. So you've been with Roger like daily while all this is going on. All this, how's he holding up?
He's holding up very well. Roger is a man of his brain is like a machine. I mean, this guy can recall a name and the date of a senator or a junior senator or a congressman or someone that was running in the congressional race 34 years ago, 20 years ago, and just like that. He's a guy that never stops working. It's one of those types. That's not me. I'm more, I've worked, 4 or 5 hours. I'm ready to take a nap or something,
Right.
Well, that's just I saw him yesterday, and we spent a couple hours together. Just came back from Great Britain. He did 3 lectures, one at Oxford Union, and I don't know what the other 2 were, but they were pretty prestigious, and he enjoyed himself. And, he's gotten himself in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And people are always ready to blame Roger Stone for any number of crazy things. I mean, this whole, WikiLeaks and Julian Assange is a complete and utter lie. I mean, it never happened. Just as if President Trump's supposed collusion. It's a Russian delusion, is what it is, more than a collusion.
Okay, yeah, I just saw Stone on with Chuck Todd the other day, and he really handled himself quite well. I thought. I thought he really dominated the interview. Now, a couple of questions for you. One, have you been questioned by Mueller's group or called him to be questioned by any of these Senate investigations?
No, I have not.
Okay. And your politics, because I know the first few times we talked, you grew up sort of a leftist, a progressive liberal type. And now your politics are more aligned with Stone?
Well, they're more aligned with a sense of a rejection of the two-party system because, as Rogers says, how could it be that so many of the staff in crucial positions that worked for the Bush presidency can then transport themselves over to the Obama presidency?
Right.
I mean, there should be like night and day. So what I've come to realize, in fact, is that Roger is a conservative, but he's got liberal views, as I do, for the abortion issue, gay marriage, gay rights, civil rights, certainly, and the complete and utter stopping of these crazy wars that there's no value to them. They're just a way to spend money and make money for a very elite class of people. So, I'm still kind of conservative in some ways. I'm old school. So, but, marijuana and drugs in general and all that stuff is, that's a personal decision. And there's so much that we've stripped away. The government has stripped away from the American citizens. And the older I get, the harder it is to deal with the fact that everything that I grew up knowing, not just in my family, but in the world around me, is backwards, upside down, or a lie. I mean, Hitler, he didn't die in Berlin. This is my opinion. 9/11, that wasn't done by
19 hijackers.
People living in a cave. You know what I'm saying? So everything, it's so untruthful. Even things like Darwin's principle of evolution, I just don't buy it anymore. I just think that there's more information that the government is not giving its citizens on a huge, broad level, and I don't know why they're doing that. We're not scared to know the truth. We should be advancing intellectually in terms of learning new things. But if they're going to put a hold on everything and tell us some story, eventually, it's time for another revolution or something.
Now, one last question about your personal politics. Roger Stone has a tattoo of Nixon on his back. Would you get a tattoo of Trump on your back?
I'd get a tattoo of Roger Stone.
He seems to be like a really charismatic guy that people really are drawn to him, huh?
Yeah, he's extremely charismatic. He's a very dapper and well-spoken person. He's very polite, very agreeable. he's not like the cold-hearted
Right.
political assassin that he's been made out to be. And much of what has been talked about Roger is mythology, which he's the first one not to even deny it, because as one of Roger's rules is, one of the worst things one can do is be boring. So, when people accuse him of causing the resignation of that governor in New York, what was his name?
Spitzer. Elliot Spitzer.
Right. He won't deny it. He won't offer any factual evidence, and he won't stamp his feet and say, I did it, but he's not going to deny a lot of things. Roger worked so many years in the shadows in these presidential elections, Reagan and Bush's and so forth, that people barely remember seeing him in places, but the effect he created was impacted the election, like the little riot he created down in South Florida, to take the vote away from to take the vote towards Bush,
right,
between that election. So he's a pretty wily guy.
Yeah, what St. John is talking about is when they were counting the Chads, Roger Stone brought in a bunch of these Cuban guys in white shirts with short sleeves, banging on the window. I tell you, it's brilliant. What about his stuff with Al Sharpton? You ever talk about his business with Al Sharpton?
No, I didn't. I'm not even aware of they have any business.
He was Al Sharpton's campaign manager when Al Sharpton ran for president. I got to talk to him about this one day. One more question about.
In D.C., we're both going to D.C. This evening to attend the big event JFK conference there in Sterling, Virginia, which is right outside of D.C. And it's kind of an important trip for me because, of course, when Watergate happened, my mother was killed. My father went to prison. I left Washington, D.C. We lived in Potomac, Maryland, on the outskirts of the D.C. city line. And I haven't really been back.
Wow.
So this is going to be like the completion of a full circle. I'm going to be able to visit my cemetery where my mother is buried and pay my respect. And kind of like it's a big deal for me to go back there after all this time, when so much happened in that city that could have destroyed my life, and nearly did.
Hey, thank you so much, then, for taking time out, because I know you're heading off to the airport right after you do this interview. So thank you so much, man. I think I caught you on a good day when you're very reflective on your life. Yeah, I think I know. Now, what do you make too now? Coming from your CIA background, it appears to me that there's a CIA thread going from the first Bush, obviously, then Clinton with his CIA connections down there in Mena, Arkansas, and then Obama, who went to work for Business International, a CIA front company, right out of college. And then we have this monkey wrench, Trump. Do you see that CIA thread running through the presidency?
I do. I very much do. And that basically started with JFK, of course. The CIA had been had been in strength in their duties prior to JFK, but when I think Truman was the one that created the mandate for CIA, and between Truman and Eisenhower leading up to JFK, there wasn't a lot of there weren't a lot of problems between the White House and the intelligence community. But as the CIA, with each new little coup d'etat that they performed, with each new mini war that they fronted, or war behind, like the Guatemalan coup, the CIA was behind that. There was the one in was it Afghanistan or Iran? No, it was Iran.
Iran.
Even before Guatemala. Yeah. With the oil thing with the British. Every time something like that worked in the CIA, they realized that they were forming a powerful entity to govern foreign policy of the United States. And that had always been the domain of the president, the White House, and the Foreign Service. And Kennedy was the first president really to come head-to-head against the CIA in the full realization that these guys and these folks are dictating the foreign policy of this country. Because, as Kennedy found out, and his brother Bobby Kennedy found out, they only knew a small percentage of the operations the CIA was involved. I mean, there were assassination groups. There was, the training of, militia. There was sabotage in other countries. I mean, they had a whole array of items on their table that they didn't need to check with anybody else. Is it okay if we do this? Can we go into that country and just kill their leader and do this? They felt that they were the final authority on all that stuff. And Kennedy, being at that time, 1962, 1963, it was scary for him, I'm sure, because this was a huge monster that had just broken its chains and was running rampant. And that, of course, is one of the main reasons why Kennedy had to go.
Is that what you're going to be sharing about Kennedy tonight?
Actually, I don't speak until Sunday, but, I always wing it because I tried having copious notes and all this stuff, and people really enjoy it when I just sit down on the edge of the stage, the microphone, and just talk to them like I'm talking to you. They can raise their hands and ask questions, and I really affect people that way. I read a letter of apology to Caroline Kennedy, which I wrote two Novembers ago, and I read it every time I do a lecture or a speech, saying just how deeply sorry and the weight of what I've had to carry that my father could have had and probably had something to do with the murder of her father, and in my view, how wonderful she's carried this horrible thing. I mean, this was horrible, and I just felt so sorry that the man also stepped up and apologized. So so it brings me to the precipice of emotions. But that's what people draw on when they hear me. It's because it's such a human element. I'm not. All the other lecturers, they're all great guys, great researchers, and they embrace me wholly. But their facts, figures, graphs, diagrams, photo overlays, photo facial reconstruction, all these numbers and figures and this and that, and I'm just a regular person just talking, about how it's affected me personally and in my life, and people can really relate to that.
Okay, so give us a rundown. Who's going to be speaking? Where is it? How can we find it? How can we buy tickets?
Oh yeah, well it's going to be held in Sterling, Virginia. So you'd be flying into to the Dulles Airport and get a free transport over to the hotel. It's at the Holiday Inn, and it's going to be starting tomorrow at early, I think 10 a.m. People can go online to jfkconferencebc.com, jfkconferencebc.com, and it's called The Big Event. And there's going to be a hell of a lot of good speakers there. Ed Tatro, who's one of the finest researchers into the JFK assassination, Dr. Cyril Wecht, who was the nation's top pathologist. Roger Stone's going to be there. I'm going to be there. So is Gordon Ferry, Judith Berry Baker, who was Lee Harvey Oswald's summertime fling in New Orleans right before the assassination. Chris Milligan of Friday Books is going to be there. The topics are going to be vast and extremely interesting. James Spetzer, who's written many books, is an excellent author and researcher. He's going to be speaking there. And it's going on from tomorrow morning to the 11th, Sunday. I fly back on the 11th.
Okay, excellent. It's called The Big Event, jfkconferencedc.com. Now, okay, we were talking about the CIA, this threat of the CIA through the presidency all these years. But it seems like there's a departure from that with Trump, right? But are you concerned with Trump surrounding himself with these generals?
I'm concerned about a lot of things. Trump now, according to Roger, who spoke with yesterday, is is isolated himself.
Right.
He's alone in the position he's in, and the CIA is no friend to him. He doesn't really have doesn't have a strong support group, and I'm worried because one of the hopes was we were going to suck up the scum from the what do they call it, the
deep state.
The deep state or the swamp. We got to drain the swamp. That's what it was. And I just don't, I just see them being a lot of Republicans who are still angry that their choice, Bush or Rubio, didn't make it, and certainly all the Democrats whose choice of Clinton didn't make it. I was going to vote for Bernie myself.
Yeah,
he was my guy. That's my politics, basically. But Trump, because he's such a renegade, because he's not going to initially kowtow to military industrial complex. I'll give him support, and I have in the many things that I've written to expose these people that are trying to bring him down.
The other day, we saw this fascinating, I don't even know how to describe this, Sam Nunberg. Did you know him?
No, I never met him, but I talked to Roger about that yesterday. They're not friends, but on the one side, I applaud the fact that he says he's not going to honor the subpoena, and then I asked Roger, well, but why is he bringing up your name? Why is he saying, why should I show anybody my emails with Roger Stone, for example? I mean, when I heard that on the news, I looked up and I'm like, uh-oh, Roger's in trouble again.
All right.
But that's the position he's put himself in. He enjoys a good battle. I mean, he's been battling his whole life against, one of his biggest regrets is that he put so much of his energy behind Bush, which he regrets. But that is one of his few and only regrets. Besides that, he's a Nixon man, and his book about Nixon, I wrote the newest chapter on, in which vindicates Richard Nixon from all of his crimes, and it points out that the Watergate hearings and the trial itself were decked towards the left. Judge Sirica was having secret meetings with the prosecutors and with the prosecutor witnesses. They were colluding big time to bring Nixon down, and that should have if that had come out then, my father would not. It would have been a mistrial. I mean, Judge Sirica, broke the law many times by colluding with the prosecution, designing how they were going to present their case. He was supposed to do that. He became judge and jury, and my father spent, almost 4 years in federal prison for Watergate, and he would not have done so.
Now, you taped a confession with your father, where you confessed to being involved in the JFK assassination. How was that being received?
Well, that was I received that tape from my father back in 2005, I think. And I put it up and out there right away, YouTube, Coast to Coast, broke the news. And mainstream media, aside from 60 Minutes, mainstream media has not touched it. And 60 Minutes didn't follow through with their episode that they were going to, give me a 20-minute slot of a 60-minute show. I had already had meetings in San Francisco with some of their top guys, and they looked at all the evidence and heard the tape and did voice matching and handwriting analysis matching and all that stuff. And a month and 6 weeks later, I got a call from 60 Minutes saying, "I'm sorry to tell you, Mr. Hunt, we're not going to go with it. It's the high ups. They're just too volatile. People back then didn't really want to get behind the idea that LBJ had something to do with the assassination. It was the mafia, the Cubans or the Russians or whoever. But now it's much more popular and much more acceptable to at least admit, or for American citizens get their heads around the idea that LBJ had something to do with the Kennedy assassination. And I go into that in my book, Bond of Secrecy. Roger wrote a whole book, which was a New York Times bestseller, called The Man Who Killed Kennedy. And there's been a lot of other great authors. Bob McClellan is one of the earliest ones. He was a lawyer working in Johnson's legal firm. And he wrote a book about LBJ's involvement in the Kennedy assassination. So people are kind of coming around, but we are never going to get an admission of truth or guilt from any part of the government. I mean, Julius Caesar was murdered by his inner circle of senators. Jesus was betrayed and set up by his inner circle. I mean, so it doesn't only do probably hundreds of examples of people in power being sold out by their inner circle who are there supposed to protect them, or at least be truthful. And it's no different when Kennedy out. Absolutely no different.
So your father's confession conforms with the Rogers theory that JFK was, or that LBJ was behind it?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
My father admitted to me that LBJ, in my father's opinion and from his knowledge, that LBJ was huge in the Kennedy assassination, knew about it beforehand, gave it the green light. I mean, after all, LBJ didn't have a lot to do with in terms of planning and that sort of thing. That was left up to the people that, like my father and the others that were part of the actual on-the-ground plan. But LBJ had to certainly give it the green light, and J. Edgar Hoover had to give it a green light, because all Hoover had to do was apprehend all the evidence in Dallas and move it to Washington, D.C., where nobody could get to do anything with it. It was just a few hours after the assassination that Hoover was already saying that that they had the one guy and stuff. And even less than 2 hours, they already had Lee Harvey Oswald. And this one great thing about Oswald's girlfriend in that summer, Judith Barry Baker, who's come under a lot of criticism and a lot of examination, but she's a truthful, honest person. She's a wonderful gal, and I call her mom. She calls me son. She's lost a lot of her family because of what she admitted about her relationship with Oswald and how Oswald was not a shooter in the JFK assassination. So she's lost her family. I've lost most of my family because me putting out the information that my father was, at the very least, aware of the plans, if not, as he called himself, a bench warmer in it. And I respect her very much for that. So, it's been an absolute struggle for all of us to get the truth out. And people go, well, why is it even important anymore? Well, because if it's not important, then what is the value of anything? I mean, you've got to draw the line somewhere. And even though 50 odd years that may have gone by, to me, it's still just as important as it was the day after it happened. Because if you let that line in the sand keep changing, then it can get much worse.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I had Judith Baker on the show, and her detractors are a very angry bunch. let's just leave it at that. The people that don't like her really don't like her, and she is an elderly woman. You got to give people a break. Now, what would we find? You co-wrote this book with Roger Stone, The Bush Crime Family. What would we find in there?
Oh wow, that was really interesting for me because I had to do a tremendous amount of research, fact checking, double checking, and then a lot of reading, and then checking those facts. So I wrote the section starting with the basic history of the Bush family coming over here from Europe, and building their empire. I took that through the original Bush guy, and then of course through George Herbert Walker, his father, and then through Poppy and George W. Bush, delving into, for example, the Prescott Bush's relationship with the before and during World War II. And even prior to that, in World War One, the banks, the Harriman and Bush related transactions, which were selling arms to the Germans and the Russians and anybody that they felt they could make a buck off of. The transition from the original Remington factory was actually worked building railroad ties, and they came across the coupler links between the two train compartments, and that's where all the money came from. But they weren't patriots in the sense that when Russia, it was declared war on Germany, that they were just going to go ahead and continue selling arms to the enemy, and that brought about a huge issue in D.C. Trading with the Enemy Act, and they confiscated all of Prescott Bush's funds from the Harriman banking people and a lot of other banks, and eventually they released to Prescott to use that money to mold his son, George Herbert Walker Bush, into presidential material, although he never really, I don't think, ran successfully for any office. He seemed to just sort of weedle his way into places. But it's a very interesting history of a family with fingers in the pie for all kinds of maybe not illegal, but immoral, certainly. I mean, selling to the enemy and banking on all the profits, colluding with the Nazis during when Auschwitz was there to mine coal for the German iron and coal production syndicate, and the Bushes and the Harrimans had a large amount of stake in those companies. I'm a little rusty with a lot of the details, but it's a fascinating book. And then I wrote the chapter, this is like a third of or more of the book that I've been thinking of. Then we did a redo on it, and I wrote the chapter on George P. Bush, the next up and coming Bush contender.
Yeah, what do you make of him? He's the guy that's running. He's running for office right now, right?
He's pretty much of a lightweight,
Yeah.
And as Jeb is, George Prescott Bush. I don't know. He was a stalker, and he was in college, with his girlfriend and stuff. He broke into, tried to get into her house, her parents' house, and was arrested and all that stuff. And he was a wild party guy, but he's been involved in Florida politics now for a number of years, and kind of keeping in the background. But I think he's going to start stepping up, and I would just be very worried because obviously the faith and the Bush legacy is going to be placed on him, and they're just going to bypass Jeb because Jeb just doesn't have it. He doesn't have charisma. He doesn't have very much intelligence. He's not a go-getter. He's fulfilled his role as governor of Florida and helping us get elected. So.
In your research,
George Prescott Bush.
In your research of the Bushes, did you look into that whole theory? Well, it's not even a theory. Barbara Bush's mother did live with Crowley, Aleister Crowley.
I never heard that before.
Okay.
Maybe I did. Maybe I read it somewhere, but I'm not really sure.
Oh no, there's letters. There's letters and stuff. The theory is though that they had a relationship, and if you look at pictures of the young Bush brothers in their college years, they look a lot like Crowley, man. So I don't know.
Looking like Crowley's no indictment as to anybody's personality or anything. I think Aleister Crowley was. He's been mythologized to be the B666, but he was actually a marvelous poet, an adventurer, an explorer, a mountain climber, a writer, one of the premier opium and heroin addicts of his time. There was a generation where there was a lot of experimenting going on. He was definitely promiscuous and had many orgiastic sex exploits. But I think his greatest role is so that people can go, "Oh, Crowley, he was the B666." They don't really know anything else about him. I mean, he had developed his own tarot deck, and he wrote books about the Egyptians and Thoth and all this stuff. He was quite an intellectual. So I got nothing but pluses to say about Aleister Crowley. He's not a Satanist.
Yeah, we had this conversation before. Yeah, we actually had this conversation before. I recall now.
Oh, okay.
Now, in your research too. By the way, people got to go back. We did 4 hours with St. John Hunt, 4 excellent hours. And I would encourage people to go back into the archives on Spreaker and on YouTube and look for those shows and listen to the progression of St. John Hunt. This is I'm really enjoying this conversation. What about there's that myth out there or a rumor that I believe is true that there exists a photo of George W. Bush standing on a bar, either naked or urinating? Did you come across that?
No, it wouldn't surprise me, but you know, they've done a lot to keep little leaks like that coming out. I mean, I'm sure they had something to do with Barry Seal's murder,
right?
You know, because you know, he was threatening to blow the lid on the Bush boys, their cocaine use, the whole Mina thing, Arkansas, and they took him out. They took my mother out. They took Marilyn Monroe out. You know, this is not just specific to one presidential candidate or one president. This is systematic in the whole entire, you know, our government in terms of what the presidents will do or what his inner circle will do or get involved in to stop someone from blowing. As my mother told me, she said when she landed in Chicago, she was going to have a press conference with Michelle Clark, who was a CBS News anchorwoman, to blow the White House out of the water. And of course, you know, the plane blown up in the air before it even landed, misguided to a vacant runway, and FBI was all over the place in 30 minutes, 40 FBI agents, which is unheard of. In those days, there was no cell phones or anything. I mean, these guys were all set up waiting for that plane to crash somewhere. And yeah, that's documented in my book Dorothy, which has all that information.
Yeah, very underreported aspect to the Watergate story is that St. John Hunt's mother was assassinated. There's pretty no doubt about it. And then Nixon actually appointed someone to change the head of the FAA who investigated the plane crashes, like days after. Am I correct?
The very next day, it was one of Nixon's most loyal troopers, Eagle Crow, who was also happened to be my father's boss in the plumbers. And he appointed him Undersecretary of Transportation, which oversaw the National Transportation and Safety Board's investigation into that crash. So he was not only relaying information about the investigation to Nixon, but also he was able to steer it and point it in directions that he felt necessary.
Yeah, no one ever talks about that, you know? And now what about too, the movie just came out, The Post, about the whole thing with Daniel Ellsberg. Now, your father was the one who broke into his psychiatrist's office?
That's correct. He and his pal Gordon Liddy were their charge was to the request from the White House was to do something about the leak of the Pentagon Papers by Ellsberg to the New York Times, which Nixon at first wasn't really bothered by, but Henry Kissinger convinced Nixon that it would show that he was weak if he didn't go after the scumbags that leaked the stories, which proved that Vietnam was an unwinnable war and flew in direct opposite of that time current spiel by the government and the military-industrial complex that everything was going well, it was a winnable war, we just need 50,000 more troops, and they'll be home by next year or whatever. And the study commissioned in the Defense Department showed that those were complete fabrications, a complete lie to the American people, just to keep the Vietnam War going. So they charged my father, and they ordered my father and Gordon Liddy to do something about it. My father thought that, well, we know that Ellsberg's has a psychiatrist. Maybe we can find out there's some dirt, maybe some incest or some, some philanderings in his marriage or something. And so they undertook the first part of the operation was to case the place out, take photographs of the outside, gain entrance to the inside. When the maid was there, they said that they were friends of Ellsberg and just let them in, and they took photographs and stuff. And then they came back a week or two later and broke in. He didn't actually do the breaking in, but his Cubans from the Old Bay of Take Days did. And those guys, some of those guys were Operation 40 members, of which my father was one of the creators of Operation 40, which was the off-the-shelf, standalone, executive action, wet work arm of the CIA. They were the guys that would do the assassinating, kidnapping, torturing of foreign diplomats, presidents, secretaries of countries that didn't fall in behind the United States of America's idea of world domination.
Do you think there's an Operation 40 in existence right now?
I'm sure there has to be. Absolutely has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably more secret than ever. But there's definitely an executive action arm of the CIA that
right.
still intact. Absolutely.
We only got about 4 minutes left, and I really want to thank you again. Sam Nunberg seems to think that they have perjury charges against Stone. He thinks that Stone may have slipped up. I think he's a smart guy. I don't think he would knowingly go in and lie to Congress or lie to the FBI. But they think he thinks they got something on him. Would Stone
on Trump or Stone?
Stone. Would Stone flip, or would he go to jail?
Well, it depends what's at stake. I mean, I don't believe Roger perjured himself. I think he's way too smart for that. And most importantly is the fact that there is and never was any evidence of a relationship between him and Julian Assange in a direct level, whereas Assange had information bad for the Clintons, and Roger was privy to that information and then announced that, it's just that there's never been anything like that ever. And so I would find it hard to believe that he had to perjure himself on any level. I think that Nunberg is just trying to deflect. And who better to deflect toward would be Roger Stone, the man that's, the devil himself. But a good friend of mine.
Right. And what about Stone's connection to Assange? What do you make of Assange these days? Because it did come out that he's kind of in the bag for Trump, and he was offering to leak his tax returns and stuff. What do you make of Assange these days?
I think Julian Assange is a hero. I think he's what we need more of. Certainly more people like himself, and also people that are willing to take risks to. Not everything is pure and 100%. So if Assange has elements and percentages of his character or his doing that may seem contradictory from his general purpose, I think that's quite human. I mean, I'm not perfect and pure, so I mean, I may seem this, and then I have a little bit of that bad in me. So if Julian's done some things, I think that's just because, look at him. He's, he organized this whole WikiLeaks thing, which, who was that soldier that's still in prison probably for the rest of his life that released through WikiLeaks like 10 billion pages of classified.
Manning, he's out.
State Department.
Manning.
Who?
Chelsea Manning, right?
Yeah,
he's out. He's out. He's getting a sex change. He's out. Yeah, he's out. He's out, and he has a sex change now, and he's a whole new life.
Really, that's great. I didn't watch the news hardly at all. I'm just disgusted by the whole news media thing, against Donald Trump. I think it's shameful behavior and embarrassing.
St. John, I can't think enough. We got less than 1 minute. What do you want to leave us with?
Never stop fighting. And that's something that Richard Nixon said. As I say those words, one of the last things he said as president was, never stop fighting and don't hate, because if you hate, they win.
St. John Hunt, thank you so much, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good night, brother. Thank you. And now a word from our sponsors.
People are waking up. They're standing up to those pushing pesticides and GMOs as safe alternatives for a starving world. What a bunch of crap. I tell you, I'd rather eat dirt. So I drink Life Change Tea. It's an herbal drink, cleansing my body of toxic sludge and nasty chemicals, and of course, ridding the intruders that are hidden in my so-called food. And by the way, Life Change Tea is non-GMO and organic. No fillers, no yuck. Just a great defense against you-know-what. May the supplement force awaken you. Don't fall to the dark side. Oh, sorry. I went to the movies last night. Anyway, enough said. How do you get that herbal drink and change your life? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. You will awaken. You will get stronger, and you might even lose a bit of weight. So awaken to Life Change Tea and the many one-of-a-kind supplements at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. May the supplement force be with you.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company located in India. So you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service to boot. They offer all kinds of services, business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshore research networking, customer care, press release content writing and distribution, and much, much more. They offer website development, e-commerce solutions, mobile responsive designs. Now, I've personally worked with Subhash for over 10 years. This is the man that puts out my press releases. They've done work on my websites, so I can personally recommend SubhashTechnosis.com. You can find a link to Subhash Technosis at OppermanReport.com and also AwakeRadio.us. You can have your ad played here at OppermanReport.com. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by EmailRevealer.com. You can go to EmailRevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. An online dating service investigation. It's called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites. And we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites. If you think your ex-husband or something is addicted to prescription medication or involved in an extreme online pornography addiction, we can produce a report for you that you can use in court. Adoption investigations. If you want to locate your birth parents or your birth child you gave away for adoption, we can do adoption investigations for you. Asset searches for you. Locate bank accounts, hidden assets, hidden properties, hidden income, all different kinds of services in the asset search investigation. Email tracing. If you need to locate or identify somebody from just an email address, we do an email trace investigation for you, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's EmailRevealer.com, or you can contact me at OppermanInvestigations@gmail.com.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. I'm the president of Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. You can find my work at emailrevealer.com. Also like to, the show's brought to you by GetTheTea.com, LifeChangeTea.com. I've been drinking this tea for 2 weeks now. I got more energy. I'm losing weight. I crave the tea when I get up in the morning. It tastes great. It helps you with your digestion and all kinds of constipation and things like that. Losing weight, more energy, Life Change Tea. I'm feeling great. I'm loving the tea. Want to give a shout out to St. John Hunt. You can catch him at the JFK Conference, JFKConferenceDC.com. It's called a big event. He's going to be there all week in DC. There, a bunch of speakers. Or Chris Milligan, our buddy's going to be down there. So check out St. John Hunt, the son of E. Howard Hunt, Watergate burglar. Going to be at JFKConferenceDC.com. Check it out. Okay. We've got a fascinating guest today. We have John Tinker. Mr. Tinker, are you there? Oh, I can't hear you at all.
Not hear me?
try to speak up a little bit there. Maybe Danny can turn up your audio too.
I'm on a telephone here.
You're on what?
I'm on a landline.
Okay. Hey, Danny, can we try and reconnect that phone call?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. Why would this be? I can't hear him at all. Okay.
Oh boy.
Well, Mr. Tinker, tell the audience, who is John Tinker?
Who is John Tinker? Well, most people would know me in association with 1969 Supreme Court case, Tinker v. Des Moines. I was 15 years old and sued the Des Moines public school system on a First Amendment ground. I'm getting quite a bit of echo here, and it's making it hard to form coherent sentences.
I can't hear you at all.
Okay. I can hear both of us.
John, before we get into the whole thing about the First Amendment and the Supreme Court case, tell the audience, who is John Tinker today? What do you do?
Well, today I'm the station manager for a small community radio station in Fayette, Missouri. It's located right here in our home, which also is the old public school building. So we have an old public school building here, a beautiful 3-story brick building with an antenna on the top, and we've got software that keeps our radio station on the air and a couple of computer networks. I'm a software guy myself, so that keeps me pretty busy. But I'm all